this thing over here. Get that thing figured out.
It goes completely around your ear.
Yeah, I had it on there once. There we go.
Yep. Got it?
Got it.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
I didn't feel like it's going to stay there. There we go. Okay. Well, this is quite a change of pace from where I started out about 12 years ago. It's been pretty impressive to me how easily I've fitted in here. Let's see, I heard a speaker talk not too long ago, and they talked about 3 dates that were important to them: their birthday and their sobriety date, which is mine, is December 22nd, 2011. And the other one she mentioned was the day she gave herself over to God, and I don't really remember exactly when that was. I remember my mom reading the Bible to us as a kid, and I had friends that went to different churches when I was in school, and you would go to them, and it's when you're in Rome, you do it, you go to their house and you get up and go to church with them and just respect their house. So 7-day Advent, I was trying to remember if I ever went to a Catholic service. Scott was Catholic. I don't know that I ever did, but I went to 7-day Advents and a couple of Baptists and that kind of thing. So I've always kind of been around religion and God, and kind of slipped away from following that as years went on. But let's see. So yeah, we're got to mention a little bit of the problem, which was, let's see, Mom was always real supportive, but as I got older, well, let's see, when I was a kid, I spent my 7th birthday in the hospital with kidney nephritis, and then I'm kind of in and out there for a while, and got well enough that the doctor said if he makes it 5 years without another attack, you've probably outgrown it. So during that time span, we moved to Oregon, and I got to be 12, 13 years old, and didn't have another attack. About that time, I was able to start working with my dad on the truck and different things like that. And my sister was Daddy's little girl, the golden child. My dad didn't treat me that way. If I ever got something done where he couldn't nitpick some little thing that I had done, it was just about 5 minutes too slow. So I didn't have much of a sense of self-worth. And then about the teenage years, a friend of mine spent the night, and he's like, hey, you want to try some of this? And then it was the quick fix thing became the new thing to do. And always wanting to be able to prove myself, that quickly got out of hand because it was, you get the adrenaline rush and the rebellious nature and all that kind of thing. So that progressed, and then I went into the service, and I really learned how to drink there. Had a few issues in the service. Talked to a couple of different counselors, and the last one I told him was, because then it was the world's fault, right? Everybody was plotting against me. Turns out that's not the case, right? But I wasn't willing to accept that then. I told him I'd just go out in the woods if I got home and had the same problem. Well, he looked at me like I was nuts, didn't realize that's still an option in Oregon, but anyway. And then, well, let's see, I guess we better get into a couple of the things I was thinking about earlier. It was I had kind of strayed from the path of God and living righteously then, but I was also able to accomplish some really good things. I became, the Army tried to give me a commission, but I was too much into the partying and that kind of thing, but I was still headed for leadership. When I got home, I started working out in the woods doing fires and that kind of thing, and then quickly made it to management. And there was a couple of things that happened out there that you can only be explained by God's grace, and he's looking out for his children. I was running along, one of the first ones I remember is I was burning slash. And I don't know how many have ever done that. Slash is logging debris, and in some units, it's really deep. I mean, I'm running along on top of this stuff. It's about 12 foot deep or so. One of the branches I step on breaks. I'm hanging upside down, nothing to grab a hold of. No way to push off or do anything about my situation. You look down, the drip torch is falling out of my hand, and it's lighting a fire that's headed right towards me. Really helpless feeling, and I remember asking for help. The next thing I know, I'm running along with the drip torch, lighting my line, doing my job, thinking, what just happened? Well, we all know what happened, right? Somebody was taking care of me. That happened a couple times. The most significant one that happened when I was out there is we're working a fire above Oak Ridge in this insane spot on this mountain where there's and the slope above us all funnels into this little gap in the rocks above the area where we're working. Incredibly dangerous. Rollies, all day long. We've got all the supervisors are posted as lookouts. We're telling all of the paired up guys, one guy works on the smoke, the other guy is the lookout. It's going pretty good. And then I hear this rock coming, and I look over, and it's about a medicine ball size rock. This thing is coming down the hill 60 miles an hour easily. It's headed right for this guy. We're yelling and trying to get his attention. His partner's got his heads down working. He's not supposed to be. And we're all yelling and screaming, can't get his attention. And I'm convinced I'm looking at a dead man. I'm reaching for my radio to call for medevac. Before the rock even makes impact, the thing bounces about from me to you on the slope above this guy, heading at him, chest high, about 8 feet from this guy. The rock breaks in half and goes either side of these two guys. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Divine intervention is the only way to explain that. Okay. So, I go on through my fire career, working out in the woods. There was too many close calls to even get into, but all right. And then, I've joked for years that God really likes me and has kept me alive. Only way to explain it. Apparently this was something I'm supposed to do, is get up here and try to help you folks. Then the addiction just became a problem. I heard a lot of people in the program say that the quick fix thing wasn't the problem, it was the solution. Well, when it quits working, what choice do you have but to surrender, admit you have a problem? And that's when I found AA. And I got in there. I started out in Roseburg, and I was there all of about 10 minutes before I'm telling these people how to fix their life, right? Where are you? You're in a rehab facility. Your own life is a mess, and these people don't want to hear what's going on. So, or what I think. You know, it took me a few minutes, a little bit to realize that I didn't really know as much as I thought. So I get talked to by one of the counselors, and he told me that they gave me a journal. Maybe I should start listening and writing things down. Well, that's what I did. That was one of the first things. And that made a huge difference when you listen and pick out things and you start trying to put it on paper where it makes sense. That's where the honesty and the willingness started to kick in. I probably should have, let's see, the serenity prayer. Could you put up the third step prayer, please? I completely skipped over that. Now that we're, here we go. I got into the program and started getting some help. And up there in Roseburg, I got asked to leave because I was still really angry, and I didn't care for the way that those people ran their program. But when I left there, I got to back up just a second. When I started into AA, or started into the rehab thing, I got this vision from God, I guess is the only way to explain it, about this guy that was going to help me. And I went to Roseburg, and he wasn't there. So when I left there, I went to the outpatient thing in Roseburg at the VA facility downtown, and I walked in to talk to the addiction therapist. His name was this guy named Harold. And as soon as I walked in the room, I was like, there he is. That's the guy that's going to help me. And he sent me to Walla Walla. And I got up there and started into their program there. They treated you like people. I guess that was my biggest problem with Roseburg, is they thought that you're just a drug addict. They look down on you, and well, that just doesn't work for me. That's everything. Here, AA program is all about love and tolerance. If you're thinking you're better than other people, that's, I don't even know where to start on that. But after I got out of Walla Walla, I went to White City and met this guy named Jim Brewer. He was my first sponsor. Took me a while to convince him that he was a sponsor, and he's the one that first got me into back into church. And next thing you know, I'm going to church with him on Sunday and Bible study, and then I'm doing the program, 4 or 5 nights a week. And one of my favorite meetings around here is Attitude Adjustment Group in Eugene at 7 o'clock in the morning at St. Thomas, I think it is. And all these meetings are open. Any of you want to come and just observe or sit around and listen to people how they deal with their problems and get a little extra shot of God during the week, so you don't have to wait for church on Sunday or Bible study. You're all welcome there. But they always start that meeting with the serenity prayers first, but this is one that they do about second or third, and it's really reminiscent of the salvation prayer that Steve does here. And if we would, you guys would all like to join in and read this with me, that'd be great. God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Take my will and my life. Guide me in my recovery. Show me how to live. Amen. All right. So, okay. And I guess I should go back to Jim. You know, one of the first things that he told me was you can't think your way into a new way of living, but you can live your way into a new way of thinking, which was true because I get into recovery and they tell you the symptom is but a symptom of the problem. Did I say that right? The addiction is but a symptom of the problem. There we go. Because your thinking's all screwed up and you're going after the quick fix, and that just doesn't work. Because the real problem's up here. You know, I was just angry. My parents are from the East Coast, and they're really into the spite thing, you know, and anger is their first response to a lot of things. I was, and the really sad part of that I've noticed is that I haven't met a person yet that doesn't want to improve on what their parents teaches them, you know. And how many times does that have to, progress forward to where it really gets somewhere? The anger thing was so prevalent. I still have a lot of trouble with that. I have had to learn that, you got to pause when you're getting ready to respond, to try to be, love and tolerance, that sort of thing. Okay. Anyway, it's so that Jim was, like I said, was telling me, you got to live your way into a new way of thinking, and it's by going to AA and the church that I was going to down there, which was a Baptist church. Man, I keep losing my train of thought here. Anyway, AA was, one of the first things you learn, they tell you, is do the next right thing. And most of the time, that's just pause before you speak. I would, anyway, all right, let's go with, you start, what you were talking about, the depression in Bible study the other night. Gratitudeless, you get so down on yourself because of the way you've lived and the problems that you've caused, and self-will run riot. You try to change that by living differently. The thing that was tough for me to get a hold of, always doing production jobs, whether you're shoveling gravel or framing walls or bucking bales of hay, it's a couple of hours. You can look back and see what you've done. Well, if you've made such a mess out of your life over 30 years, you know what? You aren't going to fix that in a couple hours. It takes a lot of time, but you can get pointed in the right direction. Promises, please. There we go. 8 promises. So here's kind of where this goes. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we'll be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will know how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of usefulness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. we will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Oh, are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. We will always materialize if we work for them. I hadn't been in, let's see, I don't know, did they start, I'm trying to remember. I don't think I heard those much up in Walla Walla, but I started hearing them at White City when I was down there. And I only had, I don't know, well, let's see, there was another little God shot in there I should mention. At that point in my recovery, I hadn't started taking chips yet because I thought, well, I know that's good enough for me. I'd already had the 24-hour one and the 30-day one, and I'd been to enough meetings at that point to realize they weren't necessarily about me. They're also for the people that are new to the program to see what they can achieve. And I was thinking about that on my 60-day mark when a guy walked up to me and says, "Hey, you want to chair the meeting tonight?" And I was like, oh, there's a clue. So I chaired the meeting that night and gave myself the 60-day chip. And I don't remember if they read the promises in that one or not, but it was starting to sink in by that time. And my disability claim that I had been struggling with for a few years was making progress. I was starting to get a clarity in my mind. I could tell what the problem was, the awareness of, where my thinking had been askew for a while, and I was kind of learning to be tolerant of others and myself mostly. That was another thing I should mention was one of the classes I was in, the guy was talking about forgiveness, and he says, write a letter of forgiveness. You can either write it to yourself, to a family. There was 3 choices, but anyway, I was like, okay, that's pretty simple. I wrote one to myself because I didn't believe that if you can't forgive yourself, you're not going to be able to forgive others. And something I mentioned out there at the Bible study, Russ talked about resentments, and one of the old timers around Junction was always talking about. His name was Grant, who's since passed on, and his thoughts on resentments were, it's like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. You're just harboring anger toward other people, and it doesn't hurt them. It only hurts you. Grant was pretty cool too, because he was very helpful. He was one of the old timers in a program in Junction, and when I got back here after being gone for about 11 months, he would take me to meetings. That's what we did. We drove around and went to meetings a couple of days a week, or maybe more than that. But anyway, and how that worked out was about the time that I got my driver's license back, Grant's vision had deteriorated. So then it was my turn. Him and I still went to meetings, only I was driving him and repaying him for a little bit of what he had done for me. Okay, so not really sure where else to go with this now. Guess we'll go back to the gratitude list. The change in my life. I got into, I hope you guys are following all this. I seem to be jumping all over the place. But one of the things that got me into recovery was a few people that I had known for years pulled me aside and said, "Hey, man, you really, really need help." And the thing that finally got my attention, well, there's a couple of them. One of the things was my seasonal jobs most of them had disappeared. The woods work thing was great with the firefighting and the different things. I liked it because it was seasonal. And then growing up around here, I had some farmers and a few other people that would put me to work. Put me to work when I needed it. And after a few years of this, it actually was quite a few years, but I noticed that it was becoming slimmer and slimmer. And it finally it just disappeared. And then I came back from a fire season one year and just partied away all my savings. I didn't even take the $200 I needed to set myself up for cutting wood through the winter and do that. So there was a clue there. And that's when I got into recovery. The other side of that being is when I got back here after that 11 months, being all proud of myself and telling folks, hey, you know, I'm sober now and I'm working a program and all this kind of thing. I would tell this to people that I might see 2 or 3 times a year or maybe once every 2 years, and it was a little amazing how many of those would say it's about time. Right? That was kind of my thought too. So what's that tell you? The only person that thought that was being fooled was me. And then after, I don't know, let's see, I gave you my sobriety date, so it's been a little over 12 years. At the 10-year mark, well, the first big one is the first year. That's huge. To see the difference in your life after a year. That's part of the promises that I was just reading. The first one of those that really sunk in was, I mentioned anger being a problem before. There was quite a few situations that didn't really need to be anything at all. Didn't need to be a conflict. And I would just snap and create a big problem. And then I remember the first time it happened, I don't remember what was said exactly, but this person said something to me, and I was really patient and tolerant and walked away, and I remember thinking, who is that guy? When did you start doing that? And it's been getting better ever since then. Man, I wish my train of thought would quit jumping around so much. I think I'm going somewhere. But the gratitude thing, the difference in life versus now. You know, I got tired of, I mentioned in Bible study the other night, you know, being a little envious of people that were coming back from trips and doing all this traveling. And then I have to remember that now I got tired of that, you know, and that's why I have a job that brings me home every night. And probably the most incredible thing of this whole deal is that you guys, Russ made sure a lot of you prayed for me when I had a really big-time motorcycle crash a few years back. I got a big settlement out of that. I bought a house and am able to take care of my mom. She took care of me for a lot of years when there was no good reason for it. Sometimes that's what it takes with a person that's kind of lost and out there. They've got to have all of their support taken away from them before they figure it out. I fortunately didn't have to do that. I got it figured out before Mom threw me out. But I also questioned, would I be able to take care of her? And then with that, because of being sober, when a buddy of mine was getting ready to sell his motorcycle, I was able to get a loan, and I bought the motorcycle. And I didn't get it paid off before I crashed. but I did pay it off. Anyway, the settlement came in, and I bought a house and was able to move my mom in there, you know. So another example of God providing. He almost killed me to do it, but at least he provided that person with insurance and me with a good lawyer. So, yeah, that's the thing now is I used to be so down on myself because of the way I lived and never felt good enough that it's completely turned around. If I get into a point now where I think I need to do a gratitude list, it doesn't take me long to realize that I don't really even know where to start. And I'll throw in here that I landed at this church because after you've kind of got your life straightened out, you start thinking about the people that you've kind of shamed yourself away from, or you avoid because you don't want to do that to them. You know, I would run into Russ, I don't know, what do we run into each other, 8 or 9 times or something like that. Every couple of years we would run into Russ, and I would always stop and talk. I mean, we'd be in the middle of the store for 20 minutes or half an hour at a time, it seemed like. And then it wasn't long after I hit the 10 years of sobriety, I got to thinking, well, Russ just lives right down the street, and him and I'd always be friends. And I came in here, went down to, we ended up at a garage sale at your house. And I thought, well, that's probably Russ's place. So I went back down there and talked to him, and I met Deanna, and she tells me that she's the secretary here. And not long after that, there's mailing in my mailbox about the Bible study. And it had kind of been tickling at the back of my brain that I'd missed going to church. There had been an issue with the one that I used to go to down at White City. I moved back up here and would still go down there and visit and go to service because I had a lot of folks down there. Jim passed away, pancreatic cancer, but that kind of curtailed that. And my roommate moved up here anyway. It had been a while, and I felt like I needed to do more for my spiritual health. The program helps quite a bit, but it's great to get here and get it directly from the source. Couple more things one more thing I want to mention is early in the program, you start reading the big book. And that book seems to be magic. I mean, you'll be reading through it, and you'll pick something out that really speaks to you. And then the next time you read through it, something on that same page, maybe the same sentence, will jump out at you. Work the same way with meetings. You go to a meeting and I've got to back up just a second. One of the other things that I was told early on was the best time to go to meetings is when you don't want to go. And I'm sure that applies here as well. If you don't really feel like going to church, that's probably when you should get up and go, because that's when you're going to hear what you need. I would do that at meetings. If you didn't want to go, might not understand a thing that I heard at the meeting. I always felt better. And there was a lot of times that I went to meetings when something had been bugging me all week and I didn't know what it was. And somebody would say something in the meeting and it was like, aha, now I know. And it's, if that didn't fix it, then it would at least give you a starting point so that you could fix it. That paragraph I was telling you about. Here we go. Nope. It is when, that's it, third step prayer. excuse me. This is a great example here. This was a book study meeting, one of the first ones I went to. And I went just because Jim was taking me. And I'm thinking, okay, what am I doing here? I'm sitting there through the whole meeting and I'm listening and it sounds like blah, 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 blah. We're getting down toward the end. Here's the answer right there. That's one of them things that just hit me right in the head. It is when we try to make our will conform with God's that we begin to use it rightly. To all of us, this was a most wonderful revelation. Our whole trouble had been misuse of willpower. When we had tried to bombard our problems with it instead of attempting to bring it into agreement with God's intention for us. To make this increasingly possible is the purpose of AA's 12 steps, and step 3 opens the door. So, yeah, that goes right along with blaming, blaming the world for your problems and not taking responsibility for things. Trying to, you come to the realization you really don't have any control over the world or any of the people around you. That was quite a blow to my ego to realize that all those people I was sure were plotting against me didn't have any time to be thinking about that. They all had their own problems, right? You go up and talk to them about it, and most of them are like, what are you talking about? They're not even aware that you thought there was a problem. So, yeah, that's, the only control that you really have is how you love, tolerate, and react to other people. And let's see, 7th step prayer, please. I think we're going to close out with this. So I hope you guys all got something out of that you can remember and will be helpful. This is one of that other meeting I was telling you about that opened with the 3rd step prayer. This is how they close it. If you would like to join along, it'd be great. My Creator, I'm now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you may now remove from me every single defect of character which stand in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. Do you want to close it? What's that? I got one hearing aid. I can hear him. He's coming? Okay. You need us back? All right. Well, thank you all for listening. I hope there was something useful in there. So. Need that? Nope.
He'll take it up there, so.
Okay.